Hello, I am Apostacie, and welcome to tonight's episode of Secular Soapbox. Tonight is a family affair. We are joined by James Winner, his parents David and Barbara, and show favorite Rion. We will hear the story of a heartbreaking practice of shunning within the Jehovah Witnesses. I am also joined by my amazing co-host, Baphomet. Please feel free to interact with us in the chat. Give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you like what we do here on Skeptic Haven, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on all of our awesome content. Let's start the show. Hello, everyone.
So good to see you all. How's it going?
So good to see you too. Really quick, Beth, how was the American Atheist Convention?
It was so fun.
Awesome.
I alternated between being buzzed and hungover the whole time.
Oh gosh.
For 5 days.
Wow.
And then just like Jesus, I rose on Sunday. It was fantastic. It was fantastic connections, networking, and it's just a good time. Really, really, really cool. I hope to see you there next year. It's going to be in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Rion, I want to see you again. It's going to be
I'll
so
be there.
good.
I will definitely be there.
Yay.
Yeah, good to see you all. Hi, James. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How you doing?
Fantastic. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too, man. You too.
Yeah. So, James, we are looking forward to, we're looking forward to getting to know you and hearing your story with your parents. So thank you for asking them to come on. And I find it really interesting that you shunned them upon their departure. Yeah. So I want to hear all about this. And Rion, you're also an ex-Jehovah's Witness. So I'm sure you have your own story about possibly being shunned, and you can fill us in as well. So can we bring
typical
on
JW story?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Sadly.
Yeah. So can we bring on David and Barbara to say hello?
I think they lost connection. We're trying to get them back.
Okay. So maybe you can tell us about what happened.
Not even connecting to their house.
I'm sorry, say that again, Stacey.
Okay. So maybe you can just give us the backstory of what happened.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Can come on.
Yeah, so basically, my dad was an elder, which is, kind of like a priest, but there's a group of them in a Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Hall. And him and my mother, I don't know, Crystal. And they woke up and left around 2011. And I was still fully in at the time. And I was having my own doubts and everything, kind of going back and forth whether I was going to stay in or not. Well, in 2014, I decided I'm going to try to go back in and, really put the religion first. And my brother at the time was going back in as well. He had been out for a long time himself.
Okay.
And him and I were talking and everything, and we made the decision to go ahead and at that time to start shunning my parents. And because at that point they were considered apostates. And for anybody who knows anything about Jehovah's Witnesses, apostates is like the worst branding you could put on a person there is, because they're just all sorts of vile and evil. The organization even calls them mentally diseased.
Yeah, that's what we heard a couple weeks ago when we had Micah on.
Yep,
mentally
exactly.
Diseased. Exactly, yeah.
And that's actually printed in their literature. They are called mentally diseased. Oof. So that's why where he got that title from is because it's actually in their literature, which is
yikes,
crazy. And so, going back into the religion, Oh my goodness, dogs. Sorry, as my dogs fighting in the background. I have 7 of them.
You have 7 dogs.
Yes. So I decided at that point though that in order for me to do better in the religion, I needed to start shunning my parents
Oh,
as
wow.
because of that. And I remember, and this is in our interview I did with them, the last phone call I had with my mother before I started shunning them, and I told my mom what I was going to start doing, and she goes, she said, well, I understand why you're doing it, you know, and she said something about how she wished she had raised me better, and I said, well, you did raise me good, and I thank you for that. And I was thanking her for raising me as a JW, and you know, subsequently, because of how I was raised, I started shunning them as a result of how I was raised.
So you thought that you were doing the right thing and she raised you well, and that was a good thing, and you were thanking her
Exactly.
Yeah.
for that. Okay.
So when we're talking about shutting, I'm assuming it means cutting all communication, but is there anything else aside from that, or is that just what it is?
That's pretty much what it is.
Okay.
No emailing, no texting, no phone calls, no communication of basically any sort. You basically treat them like they're dead.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. Because in Jehovah's eyes, they basically are spiritually dead. They're dead in his eyes. So
Yeah.
you have to do the same.
Now that you're back, David and Barbara.
Yeah, welcome. Hi.
Yeah. Hi. Welcome to the show.
I'm sorry, our internet crashed down there.
That's
Oh,
okay.
no.
Totally out. We had to come back in.
Hopefully we can
Yeah.
get some of your story. Just wondering.
I guess I did raise my son right. He did exactly what I taught him to do to religion.
Right.
I have another son that's still shunning us, so I guess I taught him better. Right?
Wow.
Say, as far as shunning goes, when we got the letter from James, we got the letter, and then that hurt. But then later on, we were kind of hoping he did, and so that we weren't talking to each other. I can't remember 4 years.
We're having a hard time hearing
No
you,
doubt,
James.
I found out through, I think, and
Yeah.
then so, but it hurt us a lot when James sent the letter, but we were always worrying about kids. You know, the Watchtower was doing, really putting children as young as ties.
Okay. I want to say something. He's on as former to free. And he was, before he left, he said he was former to free, and he was on a JW, which was a discussion board of XJWs. And so I made sure I copied down his handle, and I would look periodically on that site to see what he was saying. And I tried to kind of keep in touch with him. And as David said, we found his wife was on Facebook, and she and I were friends on Facebook, and she never unfriended me. And that's how I found out that they had the youngest son. And when he was born, and I said, "Oh yeah, James and Crystal have another little boy, and his name." And that's about all we knew. And then that's not a whole lot. She didn't post a whole lot, but she did post when her son was born. So
Yeah, she
We-
she
we
did
were-
that to keep you guys
we-
updated.
we knew this. Yeah, I don't know anything about his son. I know he had 2 children before we left, and that's all I know.
Hmm. Well, that was nice that your wife did that for their benefit, James.
I have a question. So, David and Barbara, how did you guys end up, deciding that the JWs was not the organization for you? Was this something to do with loss of faith, or is it more just the organization itself? Especially you being an elder in the organization, is that a common thing at all? Because I've never heard of that.
Well, I was a born in.
Ah.
And that's all and it took a long time for me to finally figure it out. Now I've 12 years plus, and I shake my head. Why did we ever stay in? Why did we ever stay in? But it was just a lot of little things. It's like any other person that may be up in a cult. You just can't go up to them and say, head up. It has to be little things.
Yeah.
I call it another brick falls out of the wall. And then finally it all gets to the point where it crumbles in. For me, that's what happened. As an elder, I saw big changes in the organization that even some of the publishers didn't know about. And I didn't like it because it was stuff that they used to preach about that was horrible and bad and this and that. And they were doing the same exact thing. And they're even doing it now even more than ever. And so it was, for me, it was a bunch of little things. My biggest little thing was I went up and volunteered at their headquarters for a couple of weeks to do some painting and stuff, cushion for them. And I noticed all these buildings they had in Brooklyn. They had like about, 40 or 50 buildings in Brooklyn they owned, and no one was living in them. No one was doing anything with them, as far as the building, office work or whatever. They were just there and they were fixing them all up. And I couldn't understand why. I even came home and was telling Barbara about it. I don't understand. I have all this property and not doing anything with it. Well, I know now. They sold it all off and made, over $1 billion in all their sales.
Wow.
So I understand. But
Are you referring to Bethel in
like
New
everything
York?
else in religion.
Are you
Yes.
referring to Bethel?
When it was in
So what
Brooklyn,
kinds
New
of
York.
things?
Yes.
What kinds of things were they doing?
They were the old publishing building they had right there on Columbia Heights, right on the Brooklyn Bridge. It was totally empty. That used to be full of printing presses and everything. Those were all gone. Just an empty building. They were fixing it up to sell. And it was with all these other buildings. They had like 30 other buildings, 30 or 40 other buildings all around that Brooklyn area that they were just fixing up to sell. Free labor. They fixed them up and made big profits off of them
Free
down the
labor.
road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's all volunteer. It's all Jehovah's Witnesses who do all they get the
All tax
permits.
free
I mean, they
too,
take
don't
care of everything.
And all the labor is free too. So
Of
they're saving
course.
a lot of money on labor by having people volunteer to do the work rather than hiring it out.
That's shady.
Yeah. And then when I was just ready to leave as an elder, we got letters from the governing talking about how they take over everybody's bank accounts. They took over all the congregation's bank accounts at that point. And then also later they did this thing where they gave everybody's loans, and the governing body or the watchtower took over all the properties. So now each individual congregation is no longer owned by that congregation. Now the watchtower owns it all, and these people that use it, they use all their money to take care of it, contribute to it, whatever. They don't own it. They have no say on what happens to it. And the watchtowers pulled the rug out from under them time and time again.
God.
They take over the
Yeah.
Yes, I mentioned that at the beginning.
Even to get
I
things
saw the
fixed,
handwriting on the
if
wall.
needed something fixed.
Wow.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, it's religion. They have this thing I use all the time on Facebook. Religion is a snare and a racket, and I use that all the time because I'm on several atheist groups. And I say religion is a snare and a racket.
Yes.
The only thing was the Watchtower quoted that, but they never included themselves in that, which they should,
They didn't realize.
because they're just as big as a racket as anybody else.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Huh. So, Ryan, what was your experience like when you left the Jehovah's Witnesses? Do you have family that's currently shunning you?
No, I'm thankful that I don't have anybody that is shunning me. I did have a small window of time where I had my family members delete me from Facebook because I was bad association. But I mean, I think they probably would have talked to me. I think they just didn't want to see my goings on, I guess, because maybe that was stumbling them, because that's how they view things. Like they could be stumbled by something that I do, everybody holding everybody else accountable for somebody else's actions instead of just being responsible for yourself. When I was shunned, I was a teenager, and it was basically everybody that I grew up with. So even though it's not my family per se, it's the people who I saw.
It's your community.
3-4 times a week. Now, like, look at me like I'm trash. So I was blessed not to have the family shun me, but that's kind of like an oddball thing that's not always granted to people. The elders specifically told me that they were giving me this like blessing of telling my parents they didn't have to shun me, because otherwise I would have had to be kicked out. So
wow.
Yes. So not everybody gets that. But I mean, I couldn't imagine the pain. Like, thank goodness I didn't have to go through that. But I can't imagine the pain of like David and Barbara. Like they have a son who is currently
still shunning them.
Right. So that's the pain. And then having to find out that your child has had, I don't know if it was your first grandchild, David, but having a grandchild and not knowing about it till, happenstance, seeing a post from your daughter-in-law, just really sad that's what's happening to families because of differing beliefs. Something that's supposed to be personal.
Right.
You now get held to this weird standard of not being good enough, good association, what have you. It's pathetic. It's pathetic.
Yeah.
But you got to remember
Technically, your
too
fifth
that
grandchild.
son that's shunning us, the same son that's shunning us is also that's James' brother. He's shunning him also. So we're all kind of in the same boat on that, right?
Yeah.
And James, you were. It's okay. James, you and your brother were shunning your parents together originally.
Correct.
And then you left. What was the catalyst to you leaving? Was it anything to do with your parents leaving, or
No, not
no?
nothing to do with them leaving. It's kind of weird because like during the time when I started to fully wake up from the religion, I was having lots of car problems, and I always try to work on my own car and do my own work on it. Well, so I was on YouTube a lot looking up videos on how to do this and do that with my car. I started getting suggested videos in my feed for XJW content.
Really?
Oh.
And I got curious one day.
Like we all do.
Like we all do. And I remember I clicked on a video and I started watching it, and then the Jehovah's Witness brain at the time kicked in and said, "Oh no, you shouldn't be watching this," and I turned it off. But it made sense, like more sense than sitting through years and years of meetings at the Kingdom Hall ever did. And so I went back to some more, and it kind of kept going from there. But the whole catalyst of it all was that I found out about, and all the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses in the room will know about, the Australian Royal Commission.
Okay.
And it really showed me how big of a problem that the organization had with child sexual abuse within their ranks, and how hard they were working to cover it up. And on top of that, during this commission, they got one of the top leaders, which is the governing body, to testify under oath during that commission, and he lied about so many things.
Oh my
Perjury,
goodness.
so, yeah.
And I remember sitting there watching different things he was saying. I'm like, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. And you know, at that point, I'm like, well, you know, if a governing body member is going to be up there lying, you know, you're supposed to have the truth and be, you know, proud to stand up for your God, and you know, be this especially him being this representative of the entire worldwide organization. Well, if you can't get up there and tell the truth, then this really isn't the truth.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that was like the light bulb aha moment in my head. I'm done with this. And then after that, you know, of course, the time it took me to tell my wife, and then we all made our plans to leave. I'm trying to keep this brief on here for this story. But during our period where we were leaving, we had actually just reunited with my parents after we had shunned them. This was at Christmas time of that year. This was in 2018. And I got in contact with my parents, and we planned to go and celebrate Christmas for the first time. And so we made the trip up to their house in Jamestown there. And during that time, with all the working and everything I was doing, my brother gave me a call. And this was the last time I talked to my brother, and this is still true to this day. I was at work. He called me up, and he said, "Your father-in-law gave me a call and told me you're having problems. Is that true?" And of course, to clarify and reading between the lines, he meant problems with the religion. And I said, "Yes, it's true, but I'm at work right now and I don't have time to talk about it. And, you know, I'll call you later." And he said, "Okay." And that was the last time I talked to him.
Oh, crap. How long ago was that?
That was in December of 2018.
Oh, wow.
Right? Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
ours
so
was.
sorry.
When did you send? When did Tim send that letter, James?
I think it was in about
Was it
2014
14 or 13?
I think it was 14. So I shunned you guys for about 4 years. And then, of course,
Wow.
Tim is still shunning you to this day.
Yeah.
So almost
This is
10
so-
years or so
That's
that you
so
haven't
long.
spoken to your son.
Yeah, he called us.
That's a good question right there.
Yeah, Tim called
Yeah.
us. Yeah, Tim called us before he sent that letter, and we were just talking real nice with him, and he asked if we believed in God. And at the time, I've already made up my mind. You know, I don't believe in God. I became an atheist. And your mom was like that before she ever came into the organization, and remains as an atheist now. And when we told him, no, we don't believe in God, he got very upset about that.
Wow.
He just couldn't understand why a person could not believe in God. And that was the last conversation we ever had with him on that subject.
Wow.
And
Wow.
To answer the question there
Yeah.
on the screen, I would tell my brother, I still love you. I don't hold anything against you. You know, to really try to understand and look into why people are leaving, and don't just listen to what the organization tells you as to why people leave, because it's two completely different narratives. And you know, that if he ever does wake up and leave, we're still here for him. We still love him. You're still my family.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to kick you to the curb because you shunned me, because I understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, what is the narrative that they have when it comes to explaining why people leave the JWs?
Well, they'll say that people want to leave just to go sin and do their own thing. I know it's a typical answer. It really
In
is.
my case, it's true.
And
I guess it's true.
and it's never because it's anything that has to do with the organization. Because if it has to do with the organization, then it's your fault and it's all on you. But that's not true. It's the organization's fault. It's all on them.
Yeah. And then when you're an apostate, then that just adds like a warning to them. Warning, do not proceed. Like, walls up, won't talk to you, will not look at you. You are dead to the world when it comes to apostate.
Yeah. I just wanted to thanks, Mel.
Thanks, Mel.
So thank you, David, for this comment. David from Deep Drinks. Deep Drinks podcast is amazing. If you guys haven't seen it or subscribed to it, please go and do so. We love you, David. I just wanted to highlight this comment. So with or without religion, good people can behave well and bad people can do evil. But for good people to do evil, that takes religion. So I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's very, very true and relevant to this conversation and all of our conversations, I think, on this.
It really is.
Yeah. And David Winner, same question for you. Do you have things you'd like to say to your other son if he was listening? James just had a little message for him. What would you say to him if you could talk to him?
If I was able to talk to him again, I would. Well, first thing I would ask him, how is he doing?
Yeah.
Are you feeling well? It's going to be 46 years old this year, and I think the last I saw him, he was 35.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a while, but anyway,
Wow.
maybe a little older, but still. First thing I would ask is, son, it's good to hear your voice. It's a shame that we've been separated like this all these years. Again, just like what James says, we love you. We've always have loved you. Let him know from the talking to us, we've always worried about him and his wife and his children, who are now young adults now. That's what I would like to say, and just ask him. I would like to ask him if he would talk about it. Is there anything you want to know that we can do better? And of course, if he's back in the organization, I'd have to say, no, I can't do that consciously because I know some of that things do. And but at any rate, that would be about it. I try not to make it confrontational. I'm hoping he feels I'm a little different now. I was years ago. I was a kind of a hard father to him, being an elder, trying to toe the line. And I also had some very bad emotional issues I had to deal with. I got therapy for. I was, as a child, guess what? I was raped and almost murdered by the presiding overseer of our congregation at the age of 7. Yay. And of course, as a child, you bury that, and it caused a lot of problems.
It comes out with the way you treat your own children too, whether you want it to or not, and it makes it difficult.
Yeah.
And you didn't even understand it yourself. I think start getting therapy. So, yeah.
Let me interrupt you real quick, Dad, because
Hero, right?
Because
Hero.
Well, I didn't have to go through the trauma that he went through. I was not raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I converted in my teens, and I was baptized when I was 20. So I come from a totally different background than he does. In fact, I was talking about my cousin this and my aunt that and my uncle and so on and so forth, and he goes, I didn't have any of that because my parents isolated me from all that when they became witnesses. So,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I had a hard time understanding when we for a long time. And I'm sure I still don't totally understand all that he went through as a child and as an adult, because it was not my experience. It was so far out of my experience, it was difficult to understand. But I tried to listen, and that's about all I could do. All I could do was offer him an ear.
Yeah. Good sounding board.
Can you all
best.
talk? Can you all talk for me a little bit about? I'm curious what it's like to live in a family with an elder as a father. And I believe that, David, were you also the son of an elder? Like the pressure about that? Because my father was a ministerial servant and there was a lot of pressure with that.
Oh, wow.
But I think even elder like ticks that up a notch.
My was became an elder a year after he was baptized. I was born and raised in central Illinois in the middle of cornfield, soybean field. So I'm kind of a country boy that way. But he was out of a congregation of probably 20, 30 people. He became the presiding overseer after a year of being baptized, and he never studied. He just started the watchtower, and he said, "This is the truth. I'm going to be baptized." So my mom and him got baptized in 53.
Wow.
I came along at 54. Well, he was a bit of, I realize it now, but he was, what's the word I'm looking for?
He was very narcissistic.
Narcissistic, yes. He was narcissistic to the and
he was an entertainer for one thing.
yeah.
And everybody loved him, and
Yeah.
everybody flocked around him, and he just fed on that. I think
Yeah. He was a musician before he came into organization. Anyway, so I was raised with this narcissistic father who was like that when it came to the truth. Just and when I
Regimented.
and he would tell me as a child, if you ever leave this organization, your mother and I will never talk to you ever again.
Whoa,
That's how I was raised. Even though they were hardly ever around, I basically raised myself. But when they were around, because they were working, and my brother was 11 years older than me, so he was gone out the door. And so when I became a ministerial servant, I just thought that was the right thing to do. And then shortly after that, they appointed me as an elder, and I didn't want to be an elder. I never worked to be an elder, but it came upon me. It was never my desire. And Barbara, I was different from a lot of the other elders. I was, I didn't know anybody.
Right.
I don't want to be controlled. Why would I want to control somebody else?
Yeah, I was the judgmental one. I would say, well, why would so-and-so do such and such? And he'd say, well, we have to listen to both sides of the story. And then this is what he'd always say. We have to get their side, and we have to talk to the other person, and we have to listen.
Why are we doing this?
And
Why are
I'd
we
say,
doing
"Why are
that? And I go, Barbara, you don't understand. We're really good compared to a lot of families in our congregation.
Aw,
Wow,
you're so
problems.
sweet.
Well, see, that's one thing I wanted to say too. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Dad. Because in
No,
our
go ahead.
conversations since we've left, you've told me some of the things that you did as an elder growing up, and I didn't even realize because, obviously I was a kid and I didn't know diddly squat about what you were going through or anything, but just some of the things that you did and how you treated others in the congregation. You were light years ahead of many of the other elders at the time. And, I look back and, when I was younger, I thought it was hard to be your son in some respects because of that. But now that we've had some of these conversations that I'm older, I'm looking back like, wow, you were really a lot more progressive and liberal than, I even thought you were.
Well, I tried to be. You know, a good example was this.
Did that ever
Go
get
ahead.
you in trouble? Did that ever get you in trouble with the other
The
members of the church?
The thing was, I ended up being presiding overseer and field overseer, and I was, kind of up there as far as the ladder goes in an organization in the Kingdom Hall. So no, I was never really questioned. I remember some committees that are on how the elders would be so hard-nosed, and they were actually doing things they shouldn't even be asking or saying, and I actually stopped a committee meeting, and I asked the person we were dealing with to leave, and I scolded the two elders I was working with, because you should not be doing this. And I gave them reasons why, because this was the instruction we had out of the elders book. I says, this is not appropriate. And so I was that way. I remember one lady that wanted to be disfellowshipped, she even asked for it. So it wasn't, when they ask you and you ask them, were you going to repent? No, I'm not repenting. Well, she had a drinking problem. Well, after we were all said and done with her, she was walking out, and I chased her down before she left. And I says, listen, it's AA, self cleaned up. That's what you need. Reading the Bible. And I told her, reading the Bible, reading your watchtower, doing whatever you could do ain't going to work. You need to get professional help. And
Yes.
she did. She reinstated, about 2 years later or so. And she came up to me and thanked me for that advice.
Wow.
Of becoming, so that was to me, that was a neat success story for me in my life, helping somebody like that.
You brought her
I have a
back
quick
into the
question.
organization.
Well,
I'm just curious, how was it leaving? Like you guys, both of them at the same time, both of you at the same time together left the organization?
Yep.
And how was that? Was it quick?
Together. We left together, but we
Left together.
didn't really start leaving as one. He, as he said earlier, he started questioning when he went up to Bethel to work. But while he was away, the internet kind of got me curious.
There it is.
It wasn't the internet originally. It was the newspaper, Sunday newspaper, had an article on blood transfusion and Jehovah's Witnesses. And it gave a website. And then so I said, I'm going to go look up this website and see what it says. And I started looking it up and reading it. And of course, one thing leads to another, and you keep following it and where it goes. And of course, I was on my computer, and boy, I was really, really careful to click out the history. So in case he looked at my computer,
you didn't have
he
to worry. I wouldn't know
he
how.
wouldn't know where I was.
Had nothing to do with
I
Bruce.
danced around him for a long time. And when he came back from Bethel, he said,
We were still dancing around.
he was dancing around me and I was dancing around him. We were both out mentally, but we could not tell each other we were out mentally.
About a year or so,
About a year.
we were dancing.
Wow.
Yeah. And finally he said, you know what? He says, I've been looking up this story of the global flood and Noah's Ark, and he said, I can't quite understand how it could have happened. And
Bing, bing,
my
bing.
mind really clicked then, and I said, let me do some research.
You said, wait a minute.
Wait a minute, I'm gonna go do. Yeah.
You said, I've already done the research on this.
And
You
I
walked out of the room.
went out and I printed off a whole bunch of stuff.
Not that thick.
And I gave it to him, and we started talking about that. And then later on, he was on the internet too.
It just all fell apart.
He'd heard about Ray Franz in the book he wrote, and he comes to me and he says, where are you hiding Ray Franz's book called Crisis of Conscience? And I go, I don't have it, but I'm going to order it.
And I wanted that book because I wanted to see if what he was saying was true.
Yeah.
If he was lying at all, anywhere in that book, I would say, okay, this is apostasy. I'm thinking wrong. I'm going to stay in.
See?
For anybody that may not know, Ray Franz was a member of the governing body, and he was kicked off the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, and he wrote a book on his experiences.
And
it was
Wow.
called Crisis.
And I read it
Wow.
cover to cover, and I could not find one lie in that whole book. It was all true because his experiences are very similar to an elder's experience in a congregation, just smaller scale.
Gotcha.
And it was like, that was it.
And that's when we just came together and really started talking.
That was it.
Wow.
And that's when we started laying plans.
Because I was the presiding over of this congregation, and I had to figure a way of getting out of there. Plus, my dad was sick and he was dying.
And he was an elder in that congregation as well.
And my mom had dementia real bad, and she was going downhill. And so there was a lot of pressure, and we just took a couple more years to
And they
finally
lived next
leave.
door to us too, to top that all off. So
Took a couple of years, but after that, we did leave. But we moved 1,000 miles away when we left.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, we
And
wanted
we
to
have a
make
question here. Were you scared to order it? I'm assuming they're referring to the book.
To the book, yeah.
That someone would find out.
No.
No.
We lived out in the country in North Florida. We were on 10 acres.
Very
at the time,
nice.
our nearest neighbor was snakes and alligators. So,
We just want to give a really quick shout out to everyone in the chat. This is awesome. We have so many great people who are
What's
watching
up,
right now.
everybody?
Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Skeptics and Scoundrels is here. We have Jason from Dragons and Genesis. We have Dr. Time Waster. Who else? My mom is here. Mel, Trifidity. I don't want to miss anyone, but none. So many great people. Water Baby, KCA, Apostacie, Amanda. Thank you, everyone. If I missed you, I'm sorry, but I just keep seeing all these amazing people coming in, and thanks for being here. And yeah, we love you all. Don't forget to like the video. Okay, anyways, back to this family affair.
I have a question.
Okay.
Have you all yet, because I saw that in the chat David mentioned about blood transfusion.
Yeah.
Have you all yet spoken about your situation with the whole blood transfusion thing?
Oh, there's a situation?
There's a
I
situation.
want to hear
There's
the
a
situation.
there's a situation. There's a
Well-
Oh,
situation.
We-
let's see.
Yeah, we've talked about it before.
Okay, but not here.
Not here.
Not here. No.
Us. I don't know.
You want to go ahead and tell them, guys?
Somebody else have an experience with refusing blood? Who does? No.
No,
They're talking
Well-
about you, Mom.
Barbara was giving birth to James, and right when he was coming out, everything was going smoothly. All of a sudden, I guess the umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck and it strangled, and his heart stopped beating, and he defecated in the womb, and he sucked that up into his lungs,
That's
and
really
they had to do an
dangerous.
emergency C to get him out. Well,
Damn.
they had to put her out to do that. They literally had to push him back in to her when he was coming out. It was awful.
Ouch.
There was like 5 people holding her down when they were doing that. And at any rate, afterwards, when she was starting to come out of her stupor of when they put her to sleep, this doctor, we didn't even know who he was. He was the doctor of the intensive care unit for babies. And he says, your son needs a blood transfusion. And he
And we
says,
signed all the paperwork that we were Jehovah's Witnesses and we would not accept blood for either me or the baby.
Yeah. And so at any rate, he says, well, I'm going to have to go get a court order. And he was waiting for Barbara to wake up out of her stupor to say yes to that your baby needs a blood transfusion, because they thought she'd be, drugged up too much. She wouldn't know what she's saying. But she said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And so anyway, he left, and then her doctor walked in, says, what's going on? And we told him what took place. And he says, well, I know one thing about Jehovah's Witnesses, because he had a couple of them that worked in his office. he says, you people believe your faith and you live by it. And I admire that.
Oh,
And of
wow.
course, we're in the Bible Belt in Tennessee at the time. And at any rate, he says, I'll take care of it.
I
Well, his
disagree.
word-
Sorry.
I know it. You're right. I know what you mean. But it is the Bible Belt. I mean, think about
Yeah.
it. They do follow the Bible.
Oh yeah, they think that. Yep. They
But at
think they
any
do.
rate, his name was he was God there at that. It was at the University of Tennessee Teaching Hospital.
Yeah.
And he was God, and he stopped it, but only on this condition: if he continued to improve, no problem. If he went downhill, then the court order would go in.
Wow.
Well, James improved. I mean, I went down to see him down there in the nursery there, and there was all these little bitty preemies everywhere, just little itty bitty things. I couldn't believe how small they were on all these machines. And here's James in there. He was 7 pounds 2 ounces, and he looked like a monster compared to all the others in there.
Yeah.
But with all the machines hooked up to him. But he went through it well. The only good thing about all that is, and I'm glad we didn't have him get a blood transfusion. This was in '82, and AIDS was just coming out, and no one knew about it at that point. It was like 6 months later that whole story of AIDS exploded on the news, and of course it was blood transfusions, and also gay people. But that's either here or there. How many of those poor people died because of prejudice?
Right. Yeah.
So from that point on, you can guess how we felt about refusing blood.
Oh yeah.
Because we were so sure of ourselves from that point on that we were right.
God blessed us.
God protected us from
Just reinforce that.
Yeah,
Now,
and I tell you, whenever I spoke to somebody at the door and that subject came up, I blasted them because I was like, nobody's telling me
Now,
that.
let me tell you the real story about my birth, though, real quick.
Oh,
See,
because you remember everything?
The truth is, I saw who my
Sure.
parents were going to be, and I tried to take myself out of this world before I came in, and they didn't let me do it.
Aw.
No, we thought we'd keep you in and keep torturing you. That was a better thing. Anyway,
I know, and here I
Oh
am.
my.
the ironic thing is when I said that newspaper article that sent me to the internet the newspaper article was about taking blood, and it sent me to the website that was AJWRB, Associated Jehovah's Witnesses for Reform of Blood. And when I started reading that and reading the reason blood should be used in certain situations, and then I started seeing a different side of things, and that's ironically that's what started me out of the organization.
Yeah.
It's a good website.
But we're happy that things worked out the way they did.
Yeah.
And but she's right, reinforced our faith, especially for me, because quite frankly, around that time, because I hadn't been treated for all my problems as a child, and I suffered through a lot of horrible depressions through my life up to that point. I got help, and I was ready to leave the organization at that point. I was just going to leave. I didn't care. I was sick of it. I wasn't nothing. I think I was a ministerial servant, but I didn't do anything. I rarely went out in field service at the time. And but that situation with James kind of it kicked me in the butt again to start doing something. Unfortunately, but
Yeah.
Let me expound on that a little bit too, because that was 7 years after 1975, and that was one of the organization's failed predictions of Armageddon coming too.
Right.
So they had lived through that failed prediction, and so with him saying this about the refusal of the blood transfusion reinforcing his faith at that time, that really was huge, especially in light of that failed prediction just a few years earlier.
Yeah. And just as a side note, we were married in 1974.
Yeah.
So yeah. And
Yeah.
so we were in great anticipation of 1975.
That's just because you wanted to have sex. That's all.
That's about it. That's right.
So there
I
was
mean, that's a
purity.
legit reason.
Yeah, there was purity culture in the JWs as well.
Oh, not at all. Not one bit.
Yep. That's very true. James, did I ever tell you after we went through that ordeal with you on the blood transfusion at the hospital, and this was about 10 hours after you were born, I called my parents, your grandparents, and I told them what happened. And you know what their first words out of your grandfather's mouth were?
Oh boy, I can only imagine it's something ornery.
Well, to begin with, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm sorry you went through that. I'm sure that was quite an ordeal," he should have said that. He said, "Well, did you give him the blood transfusion?"
Oof.
That's all I
accused
cared
me.
about.
You
Yeah.
know,
So is that
that's
like an
terrible.
initial, like, is that an automatic damnation or something if you
Yes,
take
it
some
was.
blood?
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
just-
Really?
wow.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
And what is the reason behind that? I never
Yeah.
understood it.
What's
What
that?
do they tell you the reason is?
For no blood?
Yeah.
There's a couple scriptures in the Bible that says when you pour out blood,
No, you do not eat blood.
do not eat blood. If you slaughter,
But you're
an
not
animal,
eating it.
You
It's
pour
a
some blood out.
dietary restriction.
We know.
It's
We
it's a
know.
dietary law. It has nothing to do with anything medical. It was
Yes, and
literally
that's
to stop
exactly
you from
what
getting diseases from
that's
eating
exactly
stuff
that
you
Mike
shouldn't.
brought out that I looked at and I go, oh yeah, it's not eating.
That doesn't
makes
stop the
sense.
governing body from, or the watchtower teaching these kind of things. After all, the word governing body comes from a footnote they
Leviticus.
put in their own Bible. It's not even in the scriptures anyway.
Leviticus 17, 13, 14. Thank you, skeptics and scoundrels.
Yeah, and Dr. Time Waster says, nor is blood as a transfusion a form of nutrition.
Exactly.
It's a form of keeping you alive.
There's also
It
a
says-
scripture in Acts that mentions blood as well. I forget where it is, but I know it's in Acts that not to take blood,
No, not to eat.
not to eat blood.
Yeah, they didn't
Yeah,
use it
what
from
does it
medical
say?
background.
Oh, I found the verse and it says
Yeah.
anyone hunting, whether of the Israelites or of the aliens residing among them, who catches an animal or a bird that may be eaten, shall pour out its blood and cover it with earth, since the life of all flesh is its blood. I have
Yep.
told the
That's what-
Israelites, you shall not consume the blood of any flesh. How is a transfusion equal to consuming blood? That just makes no sense to me.
The watchtower always said that, well, it's nourishing your body. If you need that blood,
Oh.
you put it in, it's nourishing your body.
No.
So that was
Tells
their.
us
So
that
Yeah,
way.
we need blood. I mean,
God.
They're seriously clueless when it comes to anything medical.
no
That's
way.
all that boils down
They should
to.
not be
Obviously,
giving
they're
any
not
kind of
doctors.
advice.
No,
No.
they're not doctors, but they'll give you advice on what you should do and not do.
That does not make any sense
And then-
whatsoever.
Really will screw with your head here, Stacy, is in the early 2000s, they changed their policy a little bit to what they call blood fractions. You could
Yeah.
have fractions of blood as long as you don't take whole blood. So you could take like the platelets, the white blood cells, in fractions, but not the whole component if you needed it. It's just like,
Yeah,
The illustration that we gave was you can't have a hamburger, but you can eat the bun, or you can eat the meat, or you can eat the onion or the pickle, but you can't eat it all together.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Are there any? Shut up, Mel. Oh, so rude.
Love you, Mel.
okay,
Are there
people,
any laws against protecting, let's say, children when it comes to transfusions? Like, can a
Good
parent
question.
legally refuse a transfusion for a child who is in danger of losing their life?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
have.
Yes, they
Yeah,
can.
and they
yes,
have.
they can.
There was
Okay.
a whole
Paraded
article.
the children. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a whole.
There was a whole article.
that showed
94 awake.
pictures of children on the cover, and it says these children stayed faithful. And then you start reading the magazine, and all of these children had died because they refused a blood transfusion.
Yeah.
How sick is that? How they
Yeah.
held these children up.
They
as
glorified them.
as
yeah,
martyrs.
Martyrs.
They made
Martyrs,
martyrs out of
exactly.
these children.
Yep.
Yeah, we were
Yikes,
in. We
yikes.
were at the time. We go. Oh yeah, that was so good. Blah blah.
Wow.
Here, I'm gonna.
I was just going to say, it's like all their teachings. I mean, we were talking about shunning and disfellowshipping at the beginning,
No.
but
Go
yet I just read an article. I think it was in the early 50s or late 40s in the Watchtower that brought out that they felt that excommunication by the Catholic Church was totally wrong and was a demonic teaching, that the Catholics were teaching from the Bible. But yet, a few years later, into the later 50s, all of a sudden, disfellowshipping was the buzzword for the Watchtower.
But it wasn't excommunicating. It was now disfellowship.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
So they go. This is the way they are.
Before we wrap up, because we just have a few minutes left, Wes keeps putting up the question. They didn't really say what got them out of Jehovah's Witness. Were there little things that you came across that didn't make sense, or what motivated you to leave?
Hers was what her research through blood. Mine was just a bunch of little things. Especially, I noticed how the organization was taking control of congregation affairs through monies and property,
Right.
and that's what got me thinking. Then when I went up to Bethel to do that work, being in construction, saw that, and then I think the nail in the coffin was for me was they were talking about how the Watchtower, stopped saying we couldn't use the cross anymore. Like they had the crown and the cross, and they used to have the cross on the Watchtower, but they started teaching the cross was wrong back in the 20s. But it wasn't until the mid 40s that they finally took the cross off of the Watchtower. And I go, aha, I'm going to get them on this one, see if they're lying, And I was at Patterson Farms for a week training for presiding overseers. And so they have this wonderful library there. And I went in there one night and I looked up, I got to the Watchtower volumes that were in the 40s. And I started opening up, there's the cross. There's the cross. And I think it was 42 or 43, right after Rutherford died. I can't remember quite when he died. And that's when the cross was finally taken off the Watchtower.
Wow.
And they replaced
So
it
that was
with
the
stake.
final nail in the coffin.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Wow.
Well, what a story.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you
family
for having
story.
us. We really appreciate you.
You guys are awesome, and it's something that's very brave to leave such a high pressure organization, such a cult. So yeah, kudos, congratulations, and I want to give a shout out to this amazing organization. It's a nonprofit organization called recoveringfromreligion.org. That's their website. Recovering from Religion is a nonprofit organization that provides support and healing to those doubting their faith. They have an awesome hotline that is staffed 24/7 by very well-trained volunteers. They are located in all time, but there are volunteers everywhere. There's different languages as well. So the number is 1-84-I-DOUBT-IT. If you call, you're able to connect with a peer support worker, and they're able to, just have a conversation with you. And if you're interested, you can also join some support groups online. So, when you're leaving a religion, you're also losing the community as well. As we can see in your case, definitely that's the case. So yeah, 1-84-I-DOUBT-IT, recoveringfromreligion.org. Fantastic organization. We got to meet them in person at the convention, and they're just fantastic people. And they also have the Secular Therapy Project, which is a registry of secular therapists all over the country and the world as well, who are not associated with any type of, religion or anything like that. So go check them out. Great resource, recoveringfromreligion.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much. one really quick
It
question.
was nice meeting you all.
Oh, yeah, it was nice meeting you guys too.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, so if we could just ask James, where can we find your stuff?
I can be found on YouTube at former to free XJW. I'm on Facebook and Twitter as well. So you just search for my name, James Winter, and you'll be able to find me pretty easily.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Thank you. And Ryan, where can we find you?
Ooh, well, you can find me here on Skeptic Haven, of course, with you beauties, but also here on my namesake, Rion Tastic. I make stuff about my journey out of a high control religion. So deconstruct with me. And then, of course, on there, you can find all my other stuff. TikTok, Tax the Churches. That's my name on there, Tax the Churches. Because, yeah, Tax the Churches. That's about it.
Awesome.
Oh, I forgot one other thing.
Yeah.
You can also find me on Apostate Weekly, where I have my co-host Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
And we
Sorry.
update JW News every week as well. Every Wednesday morning
I'm
at 8,
sorry,
so-
yes.
That's cool.
My
I didn't know that.
apologies.
This must be new. So
We're
Awesome.
what, 16 weeks in, so yeah, it's still
oh,
pretty new.
okay. Pretty new.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I keep forgetting to mention it. I don't know what's wrong with me, but yes, we talk about the news. So come join us for that.
Don't worry,
Thanks.
Ryan.
And thank you, Dan, for the super chat.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Dan.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Dan.
Awesome.
We love you.
Yeah, and David
you
and
all.
Barbara, I'm wondering, can anyone get in touch with you if they wanted to stay connected? Are you on any social media platforms?
I'm on Facebook under my name, Barbara Winter. David's on Facebook as well.
It's David Winter.
That's David Winter.
I don't know. That's about the only
That's
way.
it. We're
Okay.
Yeah, I'm more of a
Awesome.
gardener than anything else, so but a builder. So
We can find you in your garden. Yeah.
David and I left together the religion, and a lot of people don't leave. It causes divorce, it causes splitting up of families, and for a while it's
Definitely.
split our faith. But we were so lucky to have each other as support as we left. That I'm very thankful for that, and I know he is. And we
also,
are so thankful that James came to his senses and came out with us.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was
too.
quite a reunion when
Yeah.
we
And thank you,
quite a
Skeptics and
reunion.
Scoundrels, for the
I
super
think
chat. We
James shows it
appreciate
on
you.
our video.
Yeah. Awesome.
So now we want to thank the
Thank you.
patrons. Patrons on Patreon. If you got a Patreon, patreon.com/Skeptic Haven, you can become a patron and support what we do here on this channel. We have Eric Ozols, Tara S, Ryan. Oh, there's Ryan. Deneen. Hi, Deneen. I know she's in there in the chat. We got Dan D, Michael Wiseman, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Coalson, and Phil Calderone. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you so much. Oh, and Beth, I didn't ask you. Where can we find you? Because you do stuff as well.
I do stuff as well. If you have
You do
TikTok,
stuff.
find me as Baphometal.666. If you don't have TikTok, please don't download the app. It's terrible. It's trash. But I am also the co-host of the Burning Eden podcast. We are comedy, satire, a shit show. Here we are. We are a shit show. And we've had
Yeah.
Stacy, we've had Ryan and James. Bro, it will be good to have you, James, as a guest. But yeah, we just have a lot of fun. But we do have interviews like what we just talked about. So
Yeah.
we are on YouTube
Great
and
job.
we're on all streaming platforms if you listen to podcasts. But we're more fun on YouTube. You can see our faces.
Yes. Awesome.
What about you, Stacy?
Here and then Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and yeah, that's my TikTok.
You're on TikTok too, but you don't really.
I'm not really on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Follow me on Instagram. That's my favorite.
Instagram. Apostacie. Yeah.
Apostacie.
Not
That's right.
apostasy, like I
Not
said it was.
apostacie. No, so
It's more of a tangential topic there.
you're never gonna let me look.
No,
that up.
no.
Okay. All right.
Anywho.
Well, thank you. And don't forget to subscribe because we have lots of other shows throughout the week.
Yes.
And
Amazing
yeah,
shows.
exactly.
We have Sunny
Sunny-
Spot on Thursdays, The Global Atheist on Saturdays, Women Atheists Unload on Saturdays.
So, all right. Well, thank you,
Global
everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. So we will
Hey, I
see you
remember
all.
when we-
Well, subscribe.
Yeah.
Ring that bell. Anyways, thank you all like so much. And we will see you next
Thank you so
week.
much, guys.
Hey, good night.
Live long and prosper.